I'm Scott Chantler, creator of Squire Knight, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Scott Chantler about his latest book, Squire Knight, from First Second Publishers. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Scott is a cartoonist of the critically acclaimed graphic novels Bix and Two Generals, which was nominated for 2 Eisner Awards, selected for Best American Comics 2012, and voted by CBC Canada's Reads as one of the 40 best Canadian nonfiction books of all time. His other work includes Northwest Passage, nominated for Eisner and Harvey Awards, and the Three Thieves series, winner of the Joe Shuster Award for Best Comic for Kids, and listed by YALSA as a great graphic novel for teens. His latest project is a Squire Knight series of all-ages fantasy adventure graphic novels for First Second Publishers. Squire Knight is a story of Squire, a brainy, bookish, and terribly underappreciated by the brawny inept knight Sir Kelton, who somehow always gets all the glory. So when the two mismatched heroes find themselves in a cursed village plagued by a demonic dragon, Kelton rides off to slay it, and Squire stays behind to catch up on some reading. But Squire starts to notice that something isn't quite right about this town. Can he uncover its strange secrets? So without further ado, here's my chat with Scott Chantler about his latest book, Squire Knight, from First Second Publishers. So Scott Chantler, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's lots of fun to chat with you, that's for sure. But before we get started with all the questions, I want to ask you what's on your bedside reading table. What are you reading today?
Right now I am reading Volume 1 of a 2-volume history of the Donnellys, who are, popularly known as the Black Donnellys, who are a Canadian family in the 19th century who were, kind of notorious in this in the area where I live in southwestern Ontario, and I've never really done a deep dive on that history. I knew a guy in high school who claimed to be a descendant of the Donnellys, and I didn't really know what that meant other than that, he was trying to tell me he was a badass.
Yeah, don't mess with him. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
But doing a bit of a dive on that stuff.
Good. Yeah, that's very intriguing, that's for sure. But
John Little, I think, is the author of the book I'm reading. I should give him a plug while we're talking about it.
Super. Well, we're here talking about your newest book that's out on shelves right now called Squire Knight. Want to congratulate you on that. It's published by First Second. Tremendous success there. That's great.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to work with First Second for damn near my entire career. I've been pitching them since 2007 for basically as long as they've existed. And to their credit, they've always given me an open door to pitch. But it took a long time for me to find something they liked. They were waiting for just the right thing, and I finally found it.
Well, congratulations on that. That's tremendous.
Thank you.
So for those not familiar with and haven't picked it up yet, how would you describe the book to someone?
Squire Knight is a fun. Someone described it recently as a fantasy mystery adventure comedy, which I quite like because it does hit all of those bases. It's the publisher calls it a middle grade graphic novel. I say it's for the middle grader in us all. It's about exactly what the title would suggest. It's about a knight and his squire, except it kind of flips the usual dynamic on its head in that the knight is a big, just overblown, bragging goof, and the Squire is kind of the smart one who does all the thinking and solves the mysteries, and and of course the knight ends up taking credit for it all. So it's a fantasy adventure, but it's a real brains over brawn kind of approach to it. It's the kind of book where all the all the conflicts are solved by thinking and reading and observing and all the things. And it's there's no message per se in the book. It's not a lesson. It's not anything like that. But the themes are something that I wanted to catch them young. I wanted to get a young audience for that message.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Recently in Aurelia, family trip, we went to the Manticore bookstore and saw your book in the young readers section. So did you aim it specifically for young readers, or do you think that there might be some adults who are reading to their children who get something out of the book as well?
Yeah, it's certainly aimed at young readers, but as with most of my work, I'm trying to cast a pretty wide net. So even when I'm writing for kids, I want the parents too. I want the grandparents too. I want, I want the whole family. I want the uncles and aunts and the nephews and the cousins.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, definitely a different sort of audience from your previous book, Bix, which was definitely aimed at a more mature audience.
Yeah, Bix is definitely the most mature thing I've ever done. There's nudity and alcoholism and all kinds of things in that book. And to follow it up by going back to doing stuff for younger readers was it's kind of what I've been doing my whole career, though. Like I just, in a way, I'm lucky that I've never been so successful at any one thing that I've gotten kind of trapped just having to do that thing forever. Creatively, I really like when I finish something to kind of go do something different. Sometimes the most different thing I can think of. And it's definitely been the case in my career, either just by chance or by design or a little bit of both, that I've kind of bounced back and forth between more adult historical biographical material like Bix or Two Generals.
Right.
And kind of just fun, fantasy adventure stuff that skews a lot younger, like Squire Knight or like my Three Thieves books back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, I'm kind of lucky that, like I say, I've done a terrible job of branding myself, if that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. My gosh, no! You've got all sorts of accolades for being a great Canadian creator. What I wanted to ask you though was how did you, coming off of Bix, how did you sort of wrap your head around a different audience? Did you use different sources? Did you get inspired by any other material to say, okay, this is what the young reader or the young protagonist would be like? How did you follow that up?
I don't really do too much different when I'm writing for kids or adults. Usually the subject matter, I find, is what is going to appeal one way or the other. Like in terms of just me, in terms of kind of, trying to dig a story out of the ground in one piece, I think you'd be amazed at how similar it is. Of course, with the historical stuff, you've got all kinds of research, which you don't have to do with a fantasy book like Squire Knight. But, that's again more to do with content than with than the age of the audience.
Right. Yeah. I think
there isn't a huge difference for me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say that with the proliferation of fantasy movies, of course, with Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and all the stuff we're seeing now, Willow, unfortunately, was just taken off, but there seems to be more of a acceptance or part of the, tapestry, of literature you'd see today on bookstores, that type of thing, that we're accepting of it.
Yeah. Fantasy. I mean, the Lord of the Rings films are 22 years old now, which
oh no,
it's kind of I felt old saying it, but fantasy has definitely been a thing in this last generation or so, and that's translated into comics too, with things like Amulet and Jeff Smith's Bone finding a wider audience when
Sure.
when Scholastic republished that, kind of aimed for a younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been kind of nice.
For sure.
It's been kind of nice that's true. I do feel like now all the rage in middle grade and YA graphic novels is more to do with people trying to kind of break that Rain of Telgemeier barrier with kind of autobiographical sort of, and often to do with identity and and things like that, and I love all that stuff, and I'm glad it exists, but it's not exactly what I do. So
sure.
In some ways, I feel like Squire Knight is kind of bucking some trends.
Okay.
Even though the book itself, like I say, it kind of spins an old trope on its head a little bit. It is, very much, a fairly straightforward, adventure of a squire and knight who go off to fight a dragon. It's in some ways as kind of classical as you can get.
But you're telling it for modern readers, I guess. That's
exactly.
Sort of the trick there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, I before we start here, I was telling you that I heard you on a podcast doing an interview, and I know you attended the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival recently. Do you have any other promotional plans underway for the book?
Oh yeah, I've been at a lot of shows this spring. I've got a bit of a breather right now while we're recording this in kind of mid-July. I've got a couple of things lined up. I'm not exactly sure. I might be doing Decaf out in Dartmouth. That's not quite lined up yet. I'll be at the Dragon in Guelph, Ontario for their event. They do an anniversary event in mid-September.
Nice.
I couldn't tell you the exact date, but it's around then. Late September, I'll be in Columbus, Ohio for Cartoon Crossroads Columbus. Ooh. Which is a show that I really love. If people listening to this live anywhere near Columbus, Ohio, come to that event. It's really, really special, and I'm happy to be back again this year.
Nice.
And that might be all that's lined up for now, but I'm sure more things are coming. So keep an eye on my social media if you're listening to this to find out where I'm going to be next.
Well, that definitely sounds like you're busy. I wanted to ask you, though, like you mentioned how First Second is a publisher. Did they help coordinate some of these events, or is that all on your shoulders to do your own self-promotion?
I'm trying to think if any of the stuff I've done are things that they've lined up. They always kind of help out because there's a publicity team there who help you out with that kind of thing. Nothing so far that they've lined up, I don't think.
Okay.
I think most of the shows I've been doing, I've been doing this for over 20 years, so I've got a lot of contacts at, the various festivals and tend to get invited places by my pals who run events and so far that's what I've been doing. I rarely say no to anything. if someone invites me to a thing, I'm going.
Yeah, don't wear yourself out, though. That's the thing. You want to just go with the flow. But the reason I ask is that sometimes people who might not be familiar with the whole industry, it's like sometimes they think that others will do the job for them in terms of promotion. And as you've rightly pointed out, you have to do your own. Like you are your own fan, your biggest fan, and you've got to make sure other people are aware of that too, right?
Yeah, that's true. I'm usually pretty... I think in the comics business in particular, it's too often that publishers try to kind of download their promotional responsibilities to creators. And you see that all the time. I can't believe how many, creators I know are traveling to conventions and stuff out of their own pocket.
Whoa.
It's fine. It's fine when you're starting out and trying to get noticed. But if you've got a publisher who can cover that or help you with that, or the show to help you with that, it's a much better way to go.
Sure.
Obviously,
absolutely.
But yeah, you do. Any author in any medium, has to be out there. You got to do some social media. You got to do interviews like the one we're doing right now.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
You gotta. Yeah. You can't just be a hermit like J.D. Salinger or something. And just hang out and make it all someone else's responsibility. Because especially like, a lot of the publishers I work with and stuff are, some of the biggest publishers there are, and they're promoting Stephen King's books, and there are a lot of people who are a bigger priority than me, and so sometimes that's the case that even in a bigger publisher, if you're a smaller author, you're going to fall through the cracks a little bit, but hopefully they do some, you do some, and people end up finding out about the book.
Right, exactly. Now, speaking of social media feed, I thought I saw that you're actively working on a sequel to Squire Knight. Am I right about that? Is there a future mapped out for this series? Yeah?
Yeah, it's nearly done.
Wow.
I'm trying to finish by the end of the month.
Oh, my.
Second Squire Knight book. So, very soon a second book will be out there. No plans for a third quite yet.
Okay.
But that's motivation for people to go out and buy the first book.
Yeah, maybe
maybe we can convince them.
Sure. Now, beyond Squire Knight, and I don't want to jinx things, what else do you have on the go, or do you have time for anything else? Is the question.
I've been going pretty hard on Squire Knight for the last couple of years. The first book and this new one. And really, I have not lined up anything else, which is weird for me. I've pretty well been nose to the grindstone on this, and not really thinking about much else.
Sure.
I by the time a book is half done, usually I'm getting kind of antsy to get something else lined up. It's my old freelancer's instincts that make sure you know where the next job is coming from.
Exactly.
But there are a couple of possibilities. Nothing I'd be able to talk about yet.
Oh yeah, sure.
But nothing definite.
Okay.
So when this sequel is done at the end of the month, I might just take some actual time off.
Yeah, you probably deserve it.
Yeah.
No, that's a question though. Like, I know that with your past books, you are pretty much like nose to the grindstone, heads down. How do you stay focused? Like for me, I would be so like my attention would be drawn towards other things because I'd be so, I wouldn't say tired, but it would become a grind after a while. How do you stay focused? What's your work ethic?
Well, it helps that I really love making comics. I would rather be doing it than much else,
right.
To be honest. So, I do try to pace myself. I started taking weekends off. Like early in my career, I would work 7 days a week, whatever, because I just, was trying to get stuff going. But once I kind of got into my 40s, about a decade ago, I started taking weekends off just to kind of pace myself, spend time with my kids, have friendships, crazy things like that.
Sure.
And, so that helps. And usually, you get a little break at the end of the week. And usually by, Monday morning, I was ready and excited to make comics again.
Right.
And so that's all good. And also I've been very lucky throughout my career to be able to work on things that were passion projects for the most part. I shouldn't say never. I've very rarely taken projects that were just a job,
right?
That were just a paycheck. I made a kind of pact with myself early in my career that I would only work on things I own. Yep. And, I'm very much a creator-owned guy.
Sure.
And that for the most part has worked out very well. I've crossed that line and gone against that policy a couple of times with mixed success. But almost everything I've done has been a kind of a passion project that I own and I really wanted to do. And so, that helps too. That really helps. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, here comes a question out of left field. I should probably put all sorts of warnings around this because it's not something we talked about. But
okay.
Last fall, I asked you and a whole bunch of creators about their thoughts about AI in comic book creation. I know that was very early in the stage, and now we've seen a sort of developments in Chat GPT for writing and Stable Diffusion for image creation. I wonder if you thought any more about it as a tool or as a a warning of the end of civilization. How have you sort of thought, or have you even thought about it, or doesn't even play any part in your creation of your books?
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch this all unfold. Really, just in the last 7 or 8 months, yeah, things have really been happening with that, and I swear every second article that my news feed on my phone is pushing at me has something to do with AI. If nothing else, it's been a great boon for like journalistic think pieces about AI.
True. Yeah.
You know, it's boom time for those guys.
Right.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't use it in my work at all, and I don't expect I would.
Okay.
I mean, the technology is certainly interesting. Like it's kind of amazing what it can do. I have a lot of reservations about its use for art, and I'm putting quotes around the word art here because I really feel like there to be art, there has to be an artist.
Yes.
Art is interesting because of choices that an artist made. And with AI images, there's no choices because there is no artists.
Right.
People have been arguing for centuries whether art is about technique or whether it's about self-expression. Like AI images are neither. there's nothing being expressed and no technique to speak of. It's just averaging out all the art that other people have made for a million years. And of course, that's where you get into kind of the ethical and legal ramifications of it.
Exactly.
Because it could be the most interesting software in the world and be a really useful tool. But the fact that this software has been trained using, images that are, under copyright by living artists, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem.
Right.
Training a computer with artists' work and then making those artists compete in the marketplace against that computer is the exact kind of thing that we have copyright laws for.
Exactly.
And as usual, the law is behind the technology, but I expect it's going to catch up pretty quickly.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I know that there's an article out right now about Sarah Silverman.
I saw that today.
Yeah. So see how that turns out. I mean, she's got some case there. Some people would say you're full of it because, Sarah, how did you get started? You looked at other people's performances too to inspire you. So anyway, we'll see what the courts decided. It's very intriguing, and I didn't mean to derail our conversation, but wanted to get your thoughts.
Okay. I mean, this is what a lot of artists are thinking about right now. And and in your in the example you just gave, like Sarah Silverman is a person, and being inspired by other people's work is something we all do, but that's quite different from just appropriating it and mixing it up with a bunch of other people's work and then coughing it back out again. That's a whole different thing.
Right. Very good. Well, I appreciate your thoughts on that. That's wonderful. For people who want to, and you mentioned it before about finding out more about your work, your future and current work, where do you recommend people go online to find you?
I have a website that hasn't been updated nearly often enough. Squire Knight isn't even on it. I'm hoping to fix that once the sequel is done at the end of the month. But it's scottchantler.com. You can go there and read about my previous books at least. I swear I will get it updated soon. I'm on Instagram. I'm at Scott Chantler. I haven't been on Twitter or Facebook or anything for ages. I think those are pretty gross. I'm trying out Threads, which is new this week, and it's kind of connected to Instagram, which is interesting. I don't really know if I like it yet or whether I'll be staying. But if you're listening to this sometime in the next couple of days, I'm probably on Threads.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
You never know. There you go. Well, Scott, those are all the questions I have for you. But I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask you that you'd like to get across in this interview?
No. Just everybody should go read Squire Knight so that we can get that third book happening. Get out, support your local indie bookstore if you're lucky enough to still have one. And let's get those numbers up. And get a third Squire Knight book, or maybe a fourth. Let's shoot for the moon here.
Thanks to Scott for the chat. You can discover more about Scott at scottchantler.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. Follow along on most social media sites at True North Country Comics. And please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/TrueNorthCountryComics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.